as soon as our machines and the equipment actually catch up to what AI can allow it to do,
Oh yeah.
it's going to be mind-boggling. But what happens when a drilling engineer comes in, or the superintendent walks in and to start their shift, and they tell the rig to do something, because they'll be conversational with the rig.
For sure.
Introduce, good morning, and it'll be very, very Tony Stark-esque. But what happens the very first time a drilling superintendent tells the rig to do something and the rig tells them no? Like, that's coming, and I know some drilling superintendents, and I know that they will not handle that well.
No, they
I mean,
wouldn't at
no,
all.
at all. But that really is coming to where it's like, I'm not going to do that.
You already see some of that bias that exists in some of the foundational models. Some of them are
Yeah.
definitely like anti-oil and gas. Some of them give some leeway on that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to where the intelligence has decided, no, what you're doing is bad for the earth, and so I'm not going to participate in this any further.
Here we are again, another episode of maybe one of the most popular podcasts out there. It's not even debatable at this point anymore, but the Real Deal Landman Show. Drew Hopkins, Jerris Johnson, and we have a very special guest in the Oklahoma City studio today, and that is Mr. Dagen Boyd. So glad you're here today. Most of the time, like kind of what we talked about before, is Jerris and I have to get some real good information out of the way first, but we'll just bring you in on that immediately. Now, what we always don't know is when these episodes are going to drop. So we want to make sure that we do not mention anything that's happening now, because we don't know. It could be Christmas by the time this episode goes out.
Okay.
So who do you have winning the March Madness tournament is what I want to know.
Okay, so I've got three.
And I preface this by saying, whatever you say, we're just going to go ahead and edit in the correct guy.
Okay, so
I think that would work out pretty well. We'll just cut
Do
right
it.
in.
Okay. So Michigan.
Had it all the way, probably.
Going to go with the number one overall, or
No, every time I go chalk, I'm the worst at picks,
I am too.
right? Like, literally, I lost one year to my daughter, who did the which mascot would kill the other mascot.
And it does just as well.
And I got smoked.
I
She
know.
did way better than me. Like, all of these upsets in the first two rounds, I went chalk against her, and no number ones or made the finals. I got obliterated.
That's always the way it goes.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely always the way. We put way too much time and effort into it each year, and we don't pick by the teams. We pick by players and who will score the most points. And so you draft a team, and that team throughout. So you could either say, I want a like a High Mountain State or whatever, a 16 seed, but they've got one guy that hits 33 a game. So you're like, maybe I get him, because that's obviously I'll get a 33, but I only get him for one round.
Okay.
Or you can go real consistent and be like, I think I went this year, I had the number one pick in this draft, and I had that Duke guy, Boozer. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they almost got eliminated.
Right.
And so I was sweating bullets, and he still got, I think, 22, but it was terrifying. And that's what makes it so fun every year. Inevitably, we always have some dark horse, 5 or 6 seed that goes all the way, and somebody had just one random person on it. Absolutely kills it. So, Jerris, I mean, do you care about the March Madness?
This year, I'm kind of looking at it. I've been using some AI maneuvering to try and figure it out, but not just having it draft the bracket, challenging its logic and asking it to go and research various things to kind of see what it pulls out. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, by the time this comes out, we will already know. The snag that I have on the mascot thing is that there's going to be one dominant mascot, right? So you already picked that. You can't really do the head-to-head, because the one dominant in it, regardless of seed, is going to prevail over all of them. But what is the most dominant mascot in the league?
Great question.
I don't know. I always kind of lean towards any mascot that has a weapon.
Okay.
Like the Mountaineers, like the West Virginia Mountaineers, that
sure.
dude's got a
that.
gun.
For sure.
Or like supernatural stuff, you've got the Demon Deacons or the Blue Devils. I'm pretty sure that they'll...
I like both of those. Those were pretty solid.
So 20 some years ago, when Syracuse won, that truly was the outlier, because what the heck is an orange man, and how does it prevail over
The
all?
first to die is what an orange man is. That is for sure what that's crazy.
That's too funny. There's a college up in Washington, where my wife's from, and I think it's Evergreen State College, and they are the Fighting Gooey Ducks. And gooey duck is a type of clam that looks very wrong whenever you Google it. And their mascot, for everybody watching and listening at home, look up. I can't remember his name. For the life of me, but it's hilarious. It's the funniest stinking mascot you've ever seen in your life. And the Fighting Gooey Ducks is my favorite. And then there's another one, and I know it's not Dayton because they're the Road Runners, I think.
Dayton
Is that right?
Flyers.
Dayton Flyers.
Yeah.
There's another one that's the Fighting Violets. And I can't remember who that is, but Fighting Violets is
I'd love Fighting Violets and the Orangemen to go toe-to-toe.
Toe-to-toe?
That would be an
Yeah.
exciting
That's a
powder puff.
Maybe
match.
throw in a golden gopher, see what happens.
Yeah.
Golden Gopher. This is, man, I'm telling you, when this episode finally does come out around Christmas, people are going to be so excited. They're going to be so
And
excited. Confused. Talk about March Madness. Well, congratulations to, and I'll just do that and we'll just insert the winning team's name.
Michigan.
March Madness is always a blast every year. So I hope if you filled out a bracket, I hope you won, all the money, and I hope you didn't have to do the incredibly embarrassing thing that the loser has to do, which happens on some fantasy leagues. But the reason we're here today, and the reason we are gathering every time for the Real Deal Landman show, is because we want to find out more about people that make the industry tick. People who are creating things, who are making a difference. And so we wanted to have Dagen on today to just find out more about him and what his company, Firm.App, has been able to do for the business. But first, Dagen, let's go back. Where are you from? What kind of got you into the industry? And just give us a little rundown on who you are.
Well, I'm the middle of 5 kids.
Okay.
And 4 of the 5 were born in Nebraska. And then we moved to Bartlesville when I was 3. So I grew up a Cornhusker in Oklahoma, which was character building.
Right.
I think is probably the best way to say that.
But that was when they were like lights
Yeah.
out at football.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Nebraska played every Thanksgiving,
Huge.
and that was a big deal in my house. And there was a guy who, if OU won that game, he had this red Corvette that like would play Boomer Sooner over this loudspeaker. And we lived on a cul-de-sac, and he would do donuts in our cul-de-sac. And we would sit in the dining room window weeping because it's like
great.
he was roasting us pretty good. But yeah, it was a big deal. And then so grew up in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and
Nice.
went to the University of Oklahoma from there. All 5 kids graduated from OU
And grew up in Nebraska.
and grew up Cornhusker fans.
I guess kind of also March Madness connection. Their first NCAA win was here in Oklahoma City last night, I believe, or yesterday in the tournament.
I didn't realize that.
It was, and like it was a big deal. There's a bar in downtown Oklahoma City called Social Capital, and I guess the Nebraska fans for basketball travel just as well as for football.
I don't doubt that. Well, there's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do, but the Social Capital said that they were drank dry by 11 o'clock yesterday morning.
What?
Which is fantastic. And it was all Nebraska people. And then Nebraska got their first NCAA tournament win, from my understanding. I mean, I think that's correct, here in Oklahoma City, and they're just absolutely living life. So I'm sorry to derail.
No, that's great.
I thought
Good
that
for
was
them.
awesome.
Yeah.
I am fact checking, and you are correct.
Fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
So
It happens every now and then.
I hit one out of the park, maybe one out of every 15 episodes. So this is good. I'm good for another 14. Went to Bartlesville. Were you close in proximity with like the Bartlesville to Conoco connection?
Well,
there?
so Phillips 66,
Phillips
when I
66.
was there. So my dad was a pedodontist, a children's dentist,
Oh, nice.
pediatric dentist. And so I was one of the few who in Bartlesville, you were either worked for Phillips or you were a professional of some sort, right? You're an attorney, an accountant, a doctor, a dentist or something. So we were kind of in the minority on that side. All of my friends' dads, career-long people at Phillips,
Yeah.
first jobs out of college, retired from Phillips. I have a handful of friends who have graduated from college and gone, and they still work for ConocoPhillips
So
today.
they're
And their whole
longevity.
career, yeah.
Nice.
So I do remember at one point, I don't know the circumstances. I was pretty young, but T. Boone Pickens had something to do with like some type of like board takeover of Phillips 66 back in the day. And I remember that on our coffee table, there was like some kind of community posture against that happening. And so, it's like pitchforks and flaming torches and stuff against T. Boone. But we literally had this rock about the size of a sweet potato that had been painted, and it said it said T-Boone ammo.
My
And
gosh.
and it was like, that's what I remember of like T-Boone Pickens being introduced to him because he tried
Holy
to,
cow.
I think, take over the board or something at Phillips 66 one time. And we had a rock, I guess. We
And
were supposed
people
to,
weren't thrilled about it. Yeah.
weren't thrilled. So
Holy
they armed every home with a rock to throw at him, I guess, if he came
The
to home.
the 80s were a different.
It was a different
It was a
time. That is
different
true.
time.
Oil field, everything in the 80s was vastly different.
That is too funny. Yeah, like growing up there and then going. So, what'd you major in at OU?
I actually have a degree in journalism.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very
So
nice.
I learned how to write, and that's been the thing that I took with me.
That's awesome. That's very cool. So, at what point in your career did you start, number one, looking at maybe software as something that you wanted to get into, or getting into something that kind of was adjacent with the oil and gas industry?
So I'm a partner with two others. One's my
Okay.
older brother.
Okay.
So there are three co-founders of Firm.App, and Darren, my older brother, is one of them. And we had some different paths. He actually went through collegiate athletics. He worked for Sherry Cole on the women's basketball team for a little while, and then worked his way into the athletic department at OU before moving over to a gentleman who had some non-op stuff, and he worked with that and some real estate. So he got out of athletics and went that route. And then I was in nonprofit. I was in commercial real estate development, and then 2009, 2010 hit, and commercial development just kind of tanked. And so we ended up overlapping at a services company. So Darren was there. He was in ops and got moved to safety, and I was hired to kind of they kind of considered me like the mad scientist. Like it was like I'm about 49, 51% nerd, depending on the day. And it was, hey, we just want to be more efficient. We want to experiment with new things. We want to be innovative.
Right.
And they gave me a pretty long rope to get in and do that. And so that's where we really got introduced to oil field, was on the services side, which was awesome because the field experience, being out on a rig, kind of getting to know like the goodness of the people that are out in the oil
absolutely.
field. It was awesome.
And
it really was a lot of fun.
Where was that located? Like, was that in Oklahoma or was that Texas?
It was based here in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
It was actually started by three former Chesapeake guys: Arvin Knapp, Collie Andrews, Ken Davidson.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people that know those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, and with Chesapeake, what we're finding even with Firm.App is there's 2, maybe at worst 3 degrees of separation between whatever you do and Chesapeake.
That's our story on about every show at this point. Yeah,
well, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. So worked for those guys. We were headquartered here, and I think at our largest we had 13 yards in 7 states. So we were everywhere that we could open up a yard.
That's pretty amazing. Tell us a little bit about that program, or like what was that program focused on?
Water transfer.
Water transfer. Okay.
Which is, I mean, I think everybody on the services side would consider their service like the wild, wild west of the wild, wild west in the energy sector. I would say hands down, no question. I've seen a lot of the services. Water transfer is the craziest specific segment of the oil field, in my perspective.
Okay, so what makes it crazy? It's the people working it,
I
or
mean,
is the condition, or
it's the people, it's the start. There a lot of times they're not on site, so they don't fall under the same like expectations.
Right.
That as soon as you get onto the pad, like everybody's pretty buttoned up and everything's run pretty well. Well, water transfer is moving water from a pond or a pit or a stream or lake or something to the location. So they're basically just off. They're certainly mission critical, but they're pumping water off pad. And so they're policing themselves. And as you can imagine, when they're left to do that, there's not a lot of policing that happens. My favorite story was in my first couple of weeks, we had a yard in Woodward. And there was a guy who got to the yard that morning, and his truck was up on jacks and his wheels and tires were gone. And so he filled out a report that his wheels and tires had been stolen. Well, you come to find out that he had leased these giant wheels and tires for his company truck, had a lift put on it, giant, like,
you got to impress with that company truck, right?
Yeah, and he leased it and he stopped making payments. And so his wheels and tires got repossessed. So it's like, that's kind of like, okay. And that wasn't, that type of thing was just kind of the norm. You just like, you went from
I
one ridiculous scenario to the next.
It sounds like, and Jerris, correct me if I'm wrong, that sounds like closer to a plot of The Landman on Paramount Plus than The Landman,
I could
like
see that
background. I
happening.
mean, you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. The water component is something that's absolutely critical throughout the entire stage of operations, but it's one of those things that doesn't really get talked about a whole lot
Mm.
other than, where are we going to get the water and what are we going to do with it? But I don't know. I think similarly, when the shale boom started taking off and you saw people that began making a lot of money doing lease flipping or buying and dealing with mineral rights, et cetera, there's also kind of this niche of people that have done really, really well in dealing with water, whether
Yeah.
it's supplying it or disposing of it or handling transfer stuff, et cetera. You don't really hear those stories as much because I don't know that historically they've had kind of the same appeal. I don't know how to describe it, but I mean, it sounds like, Dagen, you probably have some stuff to enlighten us on in terms of like, what is the type of money that people were making off of water deals and like, what are the types of operations that go into that are often overlooked or just not even thought of?
Yeah. You're exactly right. I knew a couple of people kind of in the water transfer, like on the sales side, got together with a couple former land guys. I mean, they were land at the time, and they kind of created this company to go out and secure water rights. Now all of a sudden, the water's a commodity at this point, and the landowner, that they've got right of way and they've got mineral, and well, if you've got water in strategic places, it's really valuable too. So they would actually go and contract the use of the water. And so someone would knock on the door, and we ran into that early. There was this phase where we were starting to figure out that's what was happening, where the owner would just hand us a business card and we'd have to make a phone call. And all of a sudden, that water was way more expensive than the square mile to the
For sure.
east, who we were buying directly from the landowner themselves. So that was kind of this. I think of it as like a hungry hippo, kind of a land grab kind of a thing, where
Yeah.
people were running out and grabbing um, rights to water. I mean, and it was, the water was free. There was no cost to take it there, right? It was there before. So it's just adding a 30 or 40% price increase to what somebody else would, who, where you're dealing directly with a landowner. So it was
Yeah.
crazy.
And then somewhat off topic, but I think the same thing is happening right now with data centers. Everybody's talking about data centers and the land that you need to build them and obviously the power that you need to power them. But the
Yeah.
water discussion isn't really as prevalent as I think it ought to be because they obviously have to be cooled somehow. And there's obviously like a large water component that goes into that. But it seems like that's being overlooked again, which probably means there's a handful of people that are figuring out the recipe and the transaction, schematic to follow, and they're going to make a killing off of it.
Yeah. I've seen plans for data centers where, like on the site plan, there's a giant retention pond. And I think from an optics perspective, that's been a there's lots of barriers when they're trying to introduce a data center to a community. But that's been a big one too, is, well, where'd you get the water? Is that coming? And so trying to make a closed loop system where the water is less visible on site, I think is something that they're trying to work into the plan so it has better optics. Where they get it, that's a whole other, because they're going to need a ton of it, like, and it's going to
Yeah.
evaporate up, and it's an important piece of that being successful.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of the equation. But that sounds like what you guys had really put together was something that was, number one, so needed and so impactful for the business. And so you guys were able to sell that company what year?
So we had a safety software that we kind of developed as we were
Okay,
working
yes.
for the services side,
Right.
and it was called iScout, and we sold that in December of 2020 to a company called KPA out of Denver, Colorado. So that was really like, everybody was managing safety in kind of the late 2000s, early 2010s. Like there was a big shift in like how genuine people were needed to be about safety. Rising
For sure.
insurance costs, rising, lots of service companies popping up, and you needed to be more competitive.
Yeah.
And so your safety record became a sales point. And it went from saying that you're being safe to actually having to prove that you're doing all these things. So we developed a software that we thought was really kind of aimed right at the middle of the services side of the industry. And To this point, there are major operators that use it, small mom and pops and privately owned all the way up to, you know, uh, Expand and Devon and Conoco and Exxon, because they all needed the same thing, right? They just needed better processes.
For sure.
Didn't have any AI component to it.
Right.
We got it started. We had our first customer in 2014 and sold it 6 years later. And then we moved on, and we knew we wanted to have a sophomore album, so to speak. And we knew we wanted AI to be a part of that. And that's where we got kind of started with Firm.App in 2022.
That's fantastic. Give us the rundown. The reason, like, I was first very interested in finding out more about Firm was because of the background that I had from the Chesapeake connection of so owner relations minded and royalty owners, and being able to kind of the management behind that is so much more in depth, and it has so many different ways that it can go, and there's so many different things that you have to be taking like into consideration. I always was really interested with softwares that had something to do with that, and so I had heard about Firm and I had seen it, and I thought it was just absolutely fantastic, and it was something that just kind of hit on all the different things that were really important to me whenever I was out there. But let's kind of do the same thing of tell us how you got the idea with Firm and how you started being able to lay kind of the framework of, hey, this is what's going to be important for oil and gas companies.
Yeah, so it's an interesting kind of path to get to where we are today, kind of as an owner relations management platform. What we started with, we knew, and I'm not our developer, so when people hear that I'm in software, that sounds so impressive, and I have to really quickly qualify myself as like I'm not the developer before the software questions come.
No, for sure.
But Josh, our partner, knew we wanted AI to be a part of it. So he just got started in 2022 of kind of writing code that was agnostic of whatever the system was ultimately going to do. Right? Login, security, like lots of foundational elements that didn't care what we're going to do down the road. Those things needed to be in there. And so as we're doing that, we started to kind of get the roadmap towards a professional client services platform. Lawyers, accountants, like anybody that had a large number of clients that they wanted to use. A lot of attorneys have two cell phones. I've got my personal, and then I've got the one all my clients use, and it's blowing up at birthdays, anniversary dinners. Like, so how can we use a software, especially an AI based software, to kind of shield and do some of, answer some questions and kind of shield and kind of create this layer that allows them to kind of be freed up from constantly needing to be accessible. So we were kind of working towards a software that would do that, that would give your client, if I'm a client of an attorney or an accountant, I've got an app, I can sign off on things and we can schedule and converse in the app. And so it was really more of a relationship between a professional and a client. So then I live in Edmond, and my kids go to Edmond Public Schools, and Julie Woodard, who is in Land at Expand, and has been there for a long time. They're friends of ours, the Woodards, and they invited us to go to this Edmond Public School Foundation. So I'm sitting next to Julie at this table, and Julie's really sharp, and a lot of questions get asked. How's the new software coming? And you never really listen to the answer. You're just being polite. Julie Woodard is not that type of person. Her brain is processing and works, and she's very thoughtful and was listening to everything that the platform was going to do for lawyers and accountants and everything like that. So she looked at me and said, we could use that. And it was pretty surprising to me because I've answered that question before and people just kind of drift off. And
of course,
then it's like, are you going to eat that cheesecake? But she was like so focused and like, we could use that. So it started this conversation with then Chesapeake's land team about like and it was a crash course in how the relationship with operators and owners has been, where it is, and really where it needs to go. And we learned very similar to like the safety side. Like there used to be a way to deal with landowners. Like, oh, you have a problem? Did you get your check last month? Oh, well, then you really don't have a problem.
Right.
Like your cow's dead. Make hamburger. I don't know what to tell you. Just cash your check. Right? Like that seemed to be like kind of the 80s, 90s way of dealing with landowners.
For sure.
And we're in a different environment now and a different expectation. And so having something that actually improves the relationship and makes the work of the OR team lighter while it improves the experience and the interaction that the owner would have or a stakeholder would have with your company. That's kind of our lighthouse at this point, and that's what we're wanting Firm.App to go after.
I remember, so I think it was 2007 or 8 that we started the process at Expander at Chesapeake to build out an owner relations department. They didn't even have anything before that.
Yeah.
And so we built it out, and we had at its biggest, we had 42 operators that were answering calls between 7:30 a.m. and I think 5:30 or 6 at night. It was the most, where you say, needing to create some sort of line of help or a cushion for those people answering the calls. That's really true. And I think anybody that's listening in that is an operator that has talked to owners or has a team that talks to owners knows it's thankless work, or it has been.
Goodness. Sure.
It's constantly like we're joking about, did you get a check last month? Well, they're going to call every month to see if they are. And if it's not hitting that minimum suspense, well, why isn't it? And they want explanations for everything. They say they want explanations for everything. They deserve explanations for the majority of it, because they are doing a service to that company by leasing out their land and allowing that operation to go through. I did it for a few years, and I was so proud of the people that they answered. We worked on the best system that we possibly could at the time. But I remember going and talking in front of different groups, and at like the NARO convention, the National Association of Royalty Owners, different conventions all around, different royalty owner like signing events that they would have. And I would tell them up in front of hundreds of people of saying, we're always going to answer the call live. We will take as much time as we need to make sure that we figure these things out. And I remember people saying, well, what if I just get a recording, or what if I just get a email address or something? And I said, companies that care will never not have a line of live people answering. And this many years later now, I see things like Firm.App, and I see like these other technologies and the AI that's being put into it as well. And it is such a wonderful option to be able to lean on, and to be able to have, I'm not talking about a smaller staff, I'm talking about a staff that is doing exceptional work, but they're leveraging the technology. And for an owner to be able to call in and to even have it be talking to an AI agent that is pulling directly from a software, telling exactly the information that's like there, why wouldn't you want to go with that? And I mean, yes, I could have a real person, but there is also the opportunity for, they've had a terrible day, they're getting caught at a bad time, they can't pull up the right system. And so, I mean, I will never knock any of the processes that, the old school companies have put in place. But I am so excited now for like the OR future because of things just like what you're talking about. It's amazing.
Well, the owners or the stakeholders calling because they just want an answer.
For sure.
And we talked to one operator in the first 6 months of last year, they had 19,000 phone calls. Now, some of those, an owner might call at 8:05 and 8:07 and 9:13.
Right.
And then you get an email from them, right? So they're just trying to get through to get an answer. And maybe it's the 26th of the month, checks are cut, they aren't on ACH. So it's call. And they have it on their calendar on the 26th of every month to call and do that.
Calling in.
Well, the operator isn't trying to hide any of those answers from them. Like, they have OR teams in place to get them the answer. Well, so they have the answers. They have all of the data. They have that. So our system is really a tool that the OR team can use either to add a buffer of commonly asked questions. I've got all these frequently asked questions on my website. Like, have a chat agent on your website that's answering questions. Have AI auto-responding to emails. Some people are going to go to your website, some will email, some will make a phone call. Some are going to be printing PDFs off, filling them out, putting a stamp on it and sending it in, So all of those avenues need to remain open, but the AI can be layered in there to, hey, if you ask a question on an email and the AI has a 85 plus confidence rate that it knows the answer, it can shoot that answer to them. We want to keep all that data and who's asking what, but the time to close tickets we found out was like shockingly long. There's no other industry that I know of that if you were hey, well, we feel like we have an industry best response time to issues, and it's 15 days. How many of us anywhere would be satisfied to wait 2 weeks? In that 2 week period, we have no idea if something's being done. Is progress being made? Like there's no status update. I'm not following the trail. We live in an era now where FedEx won't leave me alone at how many stops away my new thing is that I just bought. 9 stops, 6 stops down the street. It's like, but 15 days average to resolve a question when it didn't take us 15 days to create the information. It took us 15 days to get to it. And it probably took 3 minutes to go find the information.
That's the truth. That's definitely the truth.
So, what we say is at the very least, I love the companies that say we want someone answering the phone. I think that's awesome. But nights and weekends, those people don't want to answer the phones on nights and weekends. Hand that over to AI. Don't come in on Monday with a backlog of 45 phone calls from the weekend that your Monday starting off behind. Like let AI take 80% of those, and you come in with, the ones that make it through are, hey, we've got a legal dispute with this one and AI is told not to do anything with that. And that goes to Jerris. Yeah. This person, it's a little more complicated. And so we're going to forward that over to accounting and let the AI, filter back the workflow. And so what we've seen is the OR teams, it's the processes that all the operators of receiving the question and providing the answer is where we can make a significant improvement.
I think that's fantastic. And to exactly what you said, we had 2 different teams. We had the live call team and we had the callback team. And the callback team hated the callback team because it was Monday morning. They knew walking in the door, they were like, I don't know if it's going to be 50 or if it's going to be 150. It just depends. 1099 season, get ready. It was really rough. So it's exciting to be able to be, and we've talked about so many times on this show with so many different guests and Jerris talks about, AI in that was his whole speaking schedule last year of the advances that we're able to make to be able to support a staff is very, very incredible. So,
you can really supercharge. It'd be like, imagine if you gave someone a platform that had an AI agent with it, and then you took it away from them, it'd be like now taking their computers away from them and telling them to do their job without laptops. It is so helpful. And I personally think that we're on a trajectory where, AI is going to revolutionize customer service. And in oil and gas, customer service is owner relations, right? That's essentially what it is. And there will be a period where you call your A-list, you call Southwest. I use the app because I'm not terribly old, but my mom's making a phone call, right? Yeah. And there will be a time when you make a phone call to a company's customer service line to handle an issue, and you're going to be disappointed that a person answers. You're going to be like, hey, do you have an AI you could forward me to? Because this is just going to take 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. I don't, because it's pretty close to instant. It doesn't have to think. It doesn't have to log into another system. It doesn't have to qualify you if you've already authenticated yourself into their system at some point. And it knows your purchase history, it knows your travel history, it knows where you're going next. So there will be disappointment in the next 24 months. If someone has an AI system, you would probably prefer to interact with that.
Exactly what you're saying is I remember we talked about at the time of Chesapeake, we were talking about the generational of my grandfather, he had to have face-to-face interaction. Right. He would get in his old farm truck and he would drive from Enid, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City to talk to an operator. He wanted to be there.
Right.
My dad, he would call and he wouldn't take anything. Well, Mr. Hopkins, we're going to email you. Nope. We're going to talk on the phone. And when you get the answer, call me the second you do. Then it gets down to our age and it's, well, you can text that to me or you can email it to me. And like you said, it's this progression. Yeah. How can I get the answers that I need as quickly as possible? I got a lot more going on today. I don't have time to talk to anybody about it. To be able to continue to modify and to be the dumb thing of where everybody's the tip of the spear of this,
right?
But to continue to be the tip of the spear of it and to be okay, we can go now to a point of where we're sending you those updates on your phone every time you've made a title update or mom and dad have died. What documentation do I need? And it immediately sends to your phone and you can.
That's exactly right. You have all of the answers to their questions. I doubt there are any questions that are coming across the OR team that are like new ones to them, that are confusing. They have all the answers, they have access to it. So just connect those two. And again, you're leaving all of the channels open. So they can come to they can talk to AI. AI might send them an email with a link to the form they need to fill out because a spouse died. Like all of that stuff can happen pretty instantaneously. The best part for the operator is they get a record of all of those interactions. Every time an owner's asked a question, what the questions are, how the AI is performing. And so they start to like build that data about their owners rather than, they're chasing backlog the entire time trying to get, they're looking at an improvement of we reduced our time to close a ticket from 15 days to 14 days. Let's celebrate that. That's that's just not going to get you there.
I think one of the things that the evolving technology is allowing to happen is to making those in-person conversations and those in-person relationships more meaningful because just like you've pointed out, there's a lot of quick answer things that somebody doesn't necessarily need to talk to somebody on. And the more that we can get those filtered out, the more that we can actually focus on those conversations that do need that human touch still today and do need that meaningful reaction. Some of the things that you guys have been talking about, it reminded me of the conversation we had last year with Artie from Ascent and his owner relations stuff. I think I kind of went into that conversation with the same mentality that you talked about, Drew, of every company should be picking up the phone every single time as soon as somebody's calling and having that interaction. And one of the things that Artie, I don't know if he meant to, but somewhat educated me on was it may seem a little callous up front that you're being sent to a voicemail or that you're being asked to email stuff. But when you do that, that's allowing you to focus your thoughts on what the need is and to provide the information so that when they do call you back, they know exactly what your problem is and they've had a chance to look up the facts and to be able to give you a direct answer right there instead of having to listen and say, well, I don't really know anything. I'm gonna have to go look at this up and then get back in touch with you. And so I see like the AI component having that same type of effect of being able to assist you in gathering that information and either answering it, or when you do have that person-to-person interaction, the information is there to be able to talk to that problem in a much more educated and a much more productive manner than it would have been otherwise. So I do have a kind of another question for you, Dagen. And as you've been pitching this or talking with companies about it, do you hit roadblocks of people saying this is going to replace jobs and I'm not keen on you replacing my job, so I'm going to slow play this or maybe steer you in a different direction? And how do you address that?
We don't get that a lot. I think the operators know that they have to be implementing AI at certain levels, right? AI, you hear a lot about how efficient it's going to make everyone or how efficient it will make you. I will make you efficient if you use it. It's not out there. If you're not implementing it, you're not going to get the benefit from it.
Yeah.
So you can't just like secondhand smoke the AI benefit, right? Like you have to understand it, use it. And I even tell that to people who like aren't implementing it at their company or their company's talking about it. Like, don't wait for your company to do it. Go download Chat GPT or Gemini and like get going and recognize like how it works. And if you love to cook, ask it cooking questions and like use your field of expertise to really kind of understand like what it is good and not good at. But most of the operators we talk about, they know that AI is going to be part of their future. We try to be as sensitive as possible. We really haven't developed a system that's going to replace anyone because OR teams already are pretty lean.
Yeah.
And so that's like they're not looking to say like how can we take our OR team from 160 to 20? It's like there aren't 160 people OR teams, right? It's like we know one that they went from 4, and this is a big operator. They went from 4 to 1. And by the time they got back from NAPE, their backlog was 1,200 open issues for one person. So it's like, that's screaming for AI. It's like AI to the rescue at that point, right? So it really is a tool that is going to, like you said, Jerris, like if the 26th of every month, 90% of our questions are what's my check for this month? Well, we don't need to have people that we pay good money for spend their day looking that up and calling back and saying, 920 cents. Just let an automated system do that. Let the people that you hire, this lean team already, let them be the face and representative of your company to more important and pressing issues, right? And so, like, let's take that 15-day notice of average of closing an issue to 2 days. We can close this because we have the bandwidth to do that. So we haven't really run into it because the OR teams, if they are so big that they require a large amount of help, they're outsourcing that is the most common.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that I think you run into is either like, well, what tools are the group that you're outsourcing it using? And are they adding people to the mix, or are they leveraging tools to reduce the footprint that they take up in my budget? So it really is like, it's an easy way to kind of show them that, but we haven't run into it too bad.
As I've had or have had the opportunity to give presentations and to talk to groups about AI implementation, specifically like with the land profession, occasionally I'll have some pushback from audience members or somebody who comes up to me afterwards, and they'll say, yeah, it might be good for this, it might be good for that, but AI is never going to be able to do what I do because I go out and I talk with those people face to face and I have those interactions with them. And the rebuttal that I pose back sometimes is, what are you going to do when the day comes when you try to reach out to a landowner or a large mineral owner to talk to them and they say, I don't have time for you, I want you to interact with my bot? And is that a future that you see is potentially happening, to where it's not just going to be people checking in through your software to answer questions, but it'll be people's bots checking in with your bot on behalf of them?
No doubt. No doubt I do. I mean, it's really Tony Stark-esque when you start to think about like what will be in our homes at some point. But I'm a believer in that. I think we're going to run into, there are people who have children now that are in first and second grade that are going to have, like, their best friends in high school are going to be humans. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's coming. I think that, talk about tip of the spear. I think of what most people like see of AI isn't the tip of the iceberg. It's like the snowflake on the tip of the iceberg, right? And everything else that AI is doing that people don't realize what's going on and the change that's coming. That's why I say, like, don't wait. Cook with AI. Like, let it help you do something, because it is going to compete for everything. I sat in a there was a panel discussion. It had a bunch of attorneys, and the attorneys were talking in terms of like their trust with AI is really low. It hallucinates and will make up case law or precedents that do not exist. And if you've read those kinds of stories, and so they're like, you always need to get eyes on it. And but it's like, okay, but that was like 6 months ago, 9 months ago, which is
At least that
which
long
is
ago.
eternity
Yeah,
in AI, right? And it's like 6 months from now, you can't be selling this 12 months ago story with AI. It's just, it is going to get better and better and better and improve. And so then you run the question of like, I've got friends in the legal industry and they do in title, and I've talked to them about, the challenges with that. And when you're a new attorney, kind of like I would imagine when you're new in land, you need to be out in the field, dirt on your boots, meeting people, building the relationship, the relational equity, and, doing the work. Well, the same thing is with a lawyer. They cut their teeth on contracts, NDAs, right? Purchase agreements, all of these things that they just read. Well, what happens when all of that's done by AI? Like, what is an attorney who's been an attorney for 10 years from now look like without having cut their teeth on all of that stuff that they do now?
Right.
I don't know. I would guess that, well, I don't want to make any of my lawyer friends mad, but yes, I think absolutely, like, there is a tsunami coming where it's not a matter of if, it's when, and you're going to be better positioned to survive and ride that out if you're prepared and have an understanding and grasp of AI.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're in the software space, but you're not a developer. However, with all the various coding tools and resources that are out, do you find yourself dabbling on potential like side products or features and things that you kind of do the quote unquote vibe coding with, and you come up with something that's like you're really excited about, and then you show it to the team and they may or may not appreciate it or like it? Like, what are, you're not a developer, but have you begun playing with that with the latest tools that have been out?
I am not a developer, and I think it can't stress that enough. Okay. So like if do not stop me on the street and ask me questions about that, because I will be very unimpressive. But yeah, so Josh, who is our partner, who's the developer, um, has kind of inspired me. So I'm kind of having conversations with Claude and creating things just from having conversations with Claude that is kind of feeding a little bit of my fear of like, well, if this idiot can make that, what can somebody who knows what they're doing do? And so it is. So I would say the answer is yes. One thing that we're doing that's really exciting, you talk about like the customer service side. On the software side, the question's support, right? Like support is not going to be like for Firm.App, we don't want to build a support team. We want to have the AI support itself, right? So you put this little tap a question mark on the software, and this window opens on the side, and you can ask it about the data that you've accumulated, like run a report on XYZ of all the information we've collected in the software, and it'll populate that. But you could also say, how do I do XYZ in the software? And it will map out in just real time, like how to use the software. So that's kind of a cool thing that we're doing is like we have support available, but when we show people how support works and how they'll access it, like it's
They
kind of
have
mind
that
blowing.
available. Yeah, they have that all the time, 24/7.
Right. Like, hey, you're in your underwear on a fishing trip and it's 10 o'clock at night and you have a question about the software.
There it is.
It like you don't have to wait for it. So it's what I build is unimpressive, but it would blow someone's mind from 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
That's what I've seen more than anything of every software that we've been able to talk to, all of the different ways that we're able to push kind of not just the oil and gas envelope forward, but just all of these. Of 10 years ago, I would have had no idea that this was
Yeah.
even possible. And so now where we have kind of the world is our oyster, so to speak, with everything, now it's what can we come up with that would be the next version of the easiest way that I could do this, that's going to continue the accuracy, going to continue the, helping the company move forward and creating just a little better environment for everybody involved. So it's super interesting.
AI is going to make the oil field more efficient, safer,
Yeah,
right?
it definitely will.
And it's going to make a huge impact in the quality of life for everybody involved, whether you're working on a rig or in an office.
We have seen, and one of the things, not getting too far off base, but just like seeing cameras, like the 360 cameras that you can have on a rig that can identify everything from a truck driving up to a water delivery truck to, someone that's actually coming to like, pick up oil or pick up, gas, to see when that door opens, to see if the person getting out is wearing a hard hat. It can tell anything. And it's not just a secondhand response anymore. It's immediate. It's making those reports. I mean, it's making it safer for everybody involved. There's no brainer that's a win-win for everybody.
Well, one question I always bring up when I've spoken a little bit, and I'd bring up like, AI on the equipment side and machine learning. It's as soon as our machines and the equipment actually catch up to what AI can allow it to do,
Oh yeah.
it's going to be mind-boggling. But what happens when a drilling engineer comes in, or the superintendent walks in and to start their shift, and they tell the rig to do something, because they'll be conversational with the rig.
For sure.
Introduce, good morning, and it'll be very, very Tony Stark-esque. But what happens the very first time a drilling superintendent tells the rig to do something and the rig tells them no? Like that's coming, and I know some drilling superintendents, and I know that they will not handle that well.
No, they wouldn't at all.
But that really is coming to where it's like, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, okay, well, I want to be in the room when that happens.
Yeah, let's see the camera turn on that for sure.
I mean, that could take us down a whole other rabbit hole, but you already see some of that bias that exists in some of the foundational models. Some of them are definitely like anti-oil and gas. Some of them give some leeway on that, but it's not out of the like realm of possibility to where the intelligence has decided, no, what you're doing is bad for the earth. And so I'm not going to participate in this any further.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got a quick question for you guys.
Yeah,
Do you say please and thank you when you interact with AI?
I do.
Do you?
I do.
I do
And
too.
the CIO of the last company that I was with, he's a very black and white person, and he's been one of the ones that has always helped me like get involved with
Okay.
AI. And he says, don't do that. He said, you just plow through and tell it exactly what it did right, what it did wrong. And he said, after it does good, you don't have to thank it. Just go for it. And I'm like, it's going to take me a lot to get out of that habit.
I
Like a
know.
lot, heck of a lot.
I say please and thank you because when they take over, I want them to remember that I
We're-
was nice to them.
We're
I
hedging
know.
our bets. That's what
I
we're
know.
doing. Well, I honestly think that we could probably, like, this has been a great episode. I think at some point in the future, we might have to have you back on for a second round of
Oh,
this.
great.
Just to be able to kind of dive a little bit further into AI. And who knows, within the next 6 months, what great things will come out of AI
definitely.
that we'll be able to talk about.
Oh,
at that
that's
point,
great.
too. So we always kind of give an opportunity here at the end of how do people find more out about Firm.App if they want to? How do they find more about Dagen Boyd if they want to, and the rest of your team?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
So we're all local. Our main office is in Norman, above Louis on Campus Corner.
Nice.
I have an office in the rail yard in Edmond. So we're local to the Oklahoma City market. We're in Houston quite a bit, meeting with customers and prospects there. We will go anywhere, anytime. So we do value in-person meetings and probably prefer them if we have the opportunity to. Firm.app is the website. That's the easiest place to find all of the functionality about the system. But there's a really easy, schedule a demo button there. It's on every page. We would love to come talk to anybody that would have a conversation with us, whether it's an operator or a consulting group or somebody on the technology side. Like we don't say no to any conversation that we could have. So we'd love to hear from people.
That's fantastic. And find you on LinkedIn as well.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I am not great on LinkedIn. I'm getting better. I'm right at that age where I'm a little old, and I'm not, I never post anything because I think, well, no one cares about what I have to say. But I've gotten better. I repost a lot. I repost y'all's stuff.
Appreciate that.
so-
I feel like I'm like I don't want to like sundown myself too, and I'm like I don't know who's finding this interesting, and I all like hesitate before I do it, and then I'm like, we'll just put out a podcast and we'll force feed it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I want.
I think
So this is our.
well, success. You did it.
That's right. That's right. Jerris, anything else before we close out today?
I don't. Wrap us up.
Wrap us up. Well, thank you so much for Dagen Boyd, for Jerris Johnson, for Drew Hopkins. Thank you for watching the Real Deal Landman Show. We will see you next time.